I want to start by saying Brakatha Yahweh, Brakatha Yaharushai, Brakatha Yahweh, Brakatha Yaharushai, Kahala Yahweh by Hashem Yaharushai, Kahala Yahweh by Hashem Yaharushai by Hashem Kakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone, that tell me this doctrine in truth and sincerity. Shalom to elect. The Heavenly Father's name is Yahweh, which means He is, He exists. By Hashem, in the name of His only begotten Son, the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. We know His name to be Yahweh Shai, which means He is the deliverer. He is the Savior for the Hebrew Israelites from the pedigree of their Father. By Hashem, in the name of the Rakach Wadash, which means the Holy Spirit, that's able to give us the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of who we are, which are the true Hebrew Israelites. If you're so-called Negro, so-called Latino, so-called Native American, or other speckled bird, looking like the other nations, in your spirit bear witness with our spirit that we are the children of Yahweh Hashem Shai, then you could be one of the elect. Shalom. We've been discontinued from our heritage because we went on following after false gods and false idols, not following the law, such commandments that was given to us by our forefathers. And because of those offenses, we were sent into captivity. But through our Lord Yahawashi HaMashiach being that perfect sacrifice in the flesh to the Heavenly Father, He's been given all power to be able to sit on the right-hand side of the Heavenly Father Yahweh, to be able to open the seals of the Holy Scriptures, to be able to give the understanding to the very elect, the ones that would hear this word and be able to understand the spirit of prophecy, which is the spirit of our Lord Yahawashi HaMashiach in His second coming, that there's going to be a time of great destruction, mourning, sorrows, and woes, and only in Yahweh Shai there is salvation for the very elect. And we pray that we're of the hopeful elect by giving diligence to make our call to election short. So I want to start right here. This is from a call from an uprising, right? And it's going into the mandating, okay, of checks of what social media, okay? And in that, this is Esau Edom, coming down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time. Esau Edom being in the scriptures, the biblical Edomites, okay, the ones that would have the fatness of the earth, control of the money system, control of the commerce, and they would rule it with the great sword. Okay, and with that sword, they've been able to take peace from the earth. This is the revival of the Roman Empire, okay, which is what the beast system, which is NATO and EU, and America spearheading the charge, America being the whore, okay, and in that, they're bringing forth their wicked devices, okay, Esau, Edom, the international bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Oppenheimers, the DuPonts, the Warburgs, the Schiffs, okay, to bring forth what the New World Order, Nova Soda Secorium. So they're beginning to basically create a siege, on people, what they say, what they do, going into basically censorship, okay, but they're doing it in a roundabout way. So this is a new plan would require some tourists to submit social media history to visit U.S., okay, and this is ultimately going to be for everybody, okay, whenever they do something for the borders or legal immigrants, right? It always goes back for everybody, because what they want to lock down everybody. They don't want a nation full of thinkers, people telling them what they're doing wrong. Okay, they want a nation full of slaves that have that chip, okay, the mark of the beast inside their hand or their forehead, total control. Okay, because Esau Edom, the so-called white man, believes that he is a god when he's just a mortal man. So this is what his cardinal devices what to deceive. So it says 5 years of social media history. So when you look at people's history, right, you've made comments about certain things, right, and these could label you extremist or radicalist. You didn't like what a president did, or right, you didn't like what a mayor did or governor did, then this can stop you from doing certain things. Okay, going into what they're doing over there in China, okay, where they have a social credit score. If you speak well about their president, okay, then you're able to, do more things. But if you're not speaking well of the president, then your social credit score goes low, and then you're not able to do certain things in society. You're not able to travel on the train, the bus, right? Live in certain areas, work at certain places, okay? So this is coming to what also to Babylon the Great, okay? And also you see on the screen, right, you see that eagle, okay? That eagle is symbolic to Esau Edom, okay? So whenever you see that eagle, know that what Esau Edom is around, okay? Because that is their symbol. That is the national bird, okay, actually of America, showing you that Esau Edom is still here, right? And he is the wicked, right? Detailed examination of the person's history, including names of family members, where they live, who are they associated to, okay? Are they associated with, so-called, extremists or radicalists or dissidents, right? People that are spoken about, right? Then they have to cut ties immediately from them, or they're not going to be able to access. This is going to create a division, okay? Matthew 10:34, think not that I come to send, peace on earth, but I come to send the sword, Okay, and that sword is what the division and also what the judgment. Okay, because when you go down to the next verses, it goes into what, a father against his mother, so on and so on. And that's what you see, division. Okay, a selfie of themselves in addition to registering their password, right? So these certain things, right? So let's let it play.
Of their history, including the names of family members, where they lived, and submit a selfie in their application. So for more on all this, I want to bring in Rosanna Berardi to break all this down. She's a managing partner at the Berardi Immigration Law Firm. And Rosanna, first, thank you so much for your time. But listen, I suppose, first off, do you see any merit to potential legal challenges of these new reviews?
Well, Alex, thanks for having me. There may be some legal challenges. However, it's a dicey issue. It seems like there are major First Amendment and privacy concerns here, but the U.S. Constitution and the Supreme Court have clearly held that foreign nationals entering the U.S. don't have the same right to privacy that U.S. citizens do. So this is in the Federal Register. I would not be surprised if it went into effect in the new year.
Well, I'm curious, is the concept of scrutinizing socials completely new? Certainly, you think about like the hiring process for many jobs, and they might look at, what you post on Instagram or what you've tweeted recently. But from federal institutions, is that new?
Well, it's not brand new. For visa applicants, people needing to go to the U.S. consulate and embassy worldwide, the government's been requiring social media history for several years. But the point of the visa waiver program through ESTA is to reward people from countries that have a great track record of, non-criminals and not entering the U.S. unlawfully. This flies in the face of the whole intent of this ESTA program because it's treating every ESTA applicant like a visa applicant and asking for a ton of information.
One of the other things,
because what is the information that they want? They want your data. Okay, they want, which is what your biometrics uniquely identified to each person. So in being uniquely identified to each person, they want to know your thought points. Okay, are you speaking out against your president? Okay, because really what they want to do is put you into categories. Okay, this is what this is all about. They'll do a roundabout way. Okay, we just want this, it's for safety concerns, but it's not about that. It's to put people in categories. That's why they want to link your digital wallet into what you say on social media. Okay. Revelation 12:10. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now has come salvation and the strength of the kingdom of our power and the power of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuses before our power day and night. Okay. And Esau Edom is our brother, right? But he is the wicked brother. He is what the antagonist of the movie, the villain. Okay. And we are the protagonists of the movie. Right, and in his rise to the to the peak that he's at, okay, he's come with what great deception, okay, by painting things as good when they're actually evil, okay. So now he's accusing us of what crimes against what his legislation, right, crimes against the Lord, right. Meanwhile, this devil is the one that's in power that what enforces those certain things, as far as pushes satanic worship, okay, and actually pushes what the hiding of who we actually are as what being Hebrew Israelites, okay, and gives us these so-called bywords that were called so-called Black, so-called Latino, so-called Native American, okay. Meanwhile, they accuse us of certain things, right, in front of the Lord, right. And when you go into this word accuse, you got the word categories, okay.
Strong's G 2725. Categoras.
Okay.
Thayer's Lexicon, related entry. Categor.
Okay. So categories, right? So an accuser, right? So what are they accusing of, right? Crimes against what? Their government, right? Their constitution, right? When really, what are they doing? They're beginning to come with draconian policies because things that weren't crimes, far as free speech, are now being put on these different platforms, right? You can't just say whatever you want about the president. Now, it starts with these illegal immigrants, right? But it's going to lead to the people, So a complaint at law, yeah. And so what are they doing with their legislation? They're amending it. Okay, they're amending it, changing it into what draconian policies, Revelation 13:11. Okay, because what Esau, Edom is what the physical counterpart, the spiritual demon of Satan. Satan means adverse to the scriptures. Okay, so things that weren't in their legislation, right, are now becoming to be in their legislation, and they are draconian because they go against what the scriptures. Okay, they want you to worship a graven image. They want you to worship them as gods. Okay, so you go to the root word right here, right, G58, agara. Okay, agara, right? So assembly, especially of people. So the assembly of those people, who's that going to be? Okay, that's what Esau, Edom at the top, basically Psalms 83. Esau, Edom, and these other heathen nations that invested millions and billions of dollars in the technology of what? Of surveillance, okay, of what a police state, okay, of what micromanaging the people as far as everything they do, the things that they say, the things that they, their opinions, right? They're not going to be able to have opinion. It's going into what being straight communists, okay, which they've always been a dictatorship, okay, but they hide behind democracy, which democracy has created a tyranny, which has created the things that you see today. Okay, the upwards of the people, the division, because of all the alphabet things they put in, right? All the things they put against against the people, that being liberal, right? So now what they're beginning to come with their new world order, right? Their 2030 agenda, their man on man, woman on woman, you will own nothing and be happy. So that would be assembly of those people. Basically, Psalms 83, Esau, Edom at the top, and there's other heathen nations. Okay, and you're going to be put on trial whether you can be able to buy and sell. Okay, you said that comment 4 years ago about Trump. Okay, so how do you feel about that now? Right, these certain things, or you said this about Joe Butthead, right? How do you feel about these certain things? You're gonna have to denounce the things that you said, right, and bow down to their image. Okay, which their image is what the beast system, which is a revival of the Roman Empire, which is NATO and EU and America spearheading the charge. Okay, ran by Esau, Edom. Right, their image is with a 2030 agenda. They're scientists, they're doctors to justify the black magic, right? Their whole system, right? And if you're against their system, then you can be what? Part of the Noahide laws, which the part of the 7 Noahide laws is one of them being beheaded because what you believe in something other than what they believe in. Okay, so you can be put on trial for what? Buying and selling. You're not going to be able to buy and sell in their society, okay, if your viewpoint is different. That's why when you go to Wisdom of Solomon 2, and 12, you can start from 10 on down. Okay, it goes into the mindset of Esau, Edom. Okay, and how he's what we proclaim them to be counterfeits because they are. Okay, because they don't follow the scriptures. In fact, their constitution shows they don't follow the scriptures. Okay, they don't follow the Bible, which is what the instructions that you're supposed to follow. Right, they have their own constitution that they actually amend. Okay, the Lord, the Heavenly Father Yahweh changes not. Okay, he doesn't change, right? But these legislations, they change all the time, okay, to fit what the ones at the top. So for buying and selling, so this is going to affect the people, and this is how what many people are going to pierce themselves through what many saw is because they're following the ways of this world. They're following what the New World Order, okay, that agara, right? You go to the root word right here, right?
Strong's G 1453. Egairo.
Okay, agaro, right? To arouse, to cause the rise, and that's what you see. People are what are rising up. Okay, Psalms 2:1, right? Why did the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? So that vain thing is what the New World Order. Okay, the heathen raging, what is that tumult and that commotion that's being caused? Okay, around the different cities. Okay, to have the people bow down to their system, to raise up, right? Yeah, to cause to be appeared, to bring about before the public. So they're bringing about these issues before the public. Okay, that you have to follow these certain ways, right? And the people in that, the people are being what? Raised up also to what? Fight one another, right? Division. Okay. So let's go back. So you go to this word right here, right? You have that word kategoras. You go to the root word right here, G2596.
Strong's G 2596. Kata.
kata, okay? And you got words like let's see. Yeah, charge, okay? So they're going to be charging of what? Their crimes against what their legislation that they're coming with, which are what draconian policies. Okay, let me actually go back to the other word, accuser, which is in the same chapter. This one right here, accuser.
Strong's G 2723. Categareo. Categareo.
Okay, categareo, right? To accuse before a judge, to make an accusation. So what's an accusation? An accusation is a charge. Okay, where they're going to be charged of extremist, radicalist, dissident, right? Sedition, right? John the Revelator, when this was written, right, was sent to the island of Patmos for what? Sedition against the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire. Now we're in the revival of that Roman Empire. Okay, so accusation, a charge or a claim that someone has done something illegal or wrong. So illegal in what? In their new draconian policies. Okay, allegation, the action or process accusing somebody. Okay, of what? Going against what they're doing. Their the criticism, right? Because you done been laid off, right? You done lost your your EBT, whatever the case may be. There's still trouble in the city, right? And so you're criticizing that through what? Social media, Instagram, Facebook, right? YouTube, right? And that you're going to be labeled what? Extremists or radicalists, right? So the expression of disapproval of someone or something. So in this case, what? America and their leadership of someone or something based on perceived faults or mistakes. Okay, and they're intentionally doing these mistakes because they want the people to be in an uproar. Before judge, accusation, right? Some offense, yeah, so whatever the offense deems to be, depending on what the comment. Okay, go to the root word. Okay, which goes to the same thing that we just read up there. Okay, so that's what they're doing. They're putting people into what categories based on what their draconian policies, on what they say and what they do. Okay, and what are they doing? They're actually spying on the people too. Okay, because those that don't just give up, see these illegal immigrants, right? They're openly giving up their information. Okay, but you have a thing called where there's so-called privacy. You're not supposed to go and do certain things, but they're already doing that with these certain devices like Flock Safety, where they're reading your license plate, where you're going, and all sorts of other things. Where Bibi Anahu said, if you have a cell phone, basically any type of smart technology, then you have what Israel's property. Okay, roughly paraphrasing that, right? So basically, what he's saying is that if you have a cell phone, then we have your information. Okay, because that's what they're doing. They're spying on people with their smart technology. Okay, Psalms 37 and 32, the wicked watch it, the righteous seek to slay him. Yeah, they seek to what? Slay us. Because really all these things are a roundabout way to really come at the prophets, the true men of the Lord that are really actually exposing them, because they're not worried about the everyday person commenting, because they're not coming with linking it to the scriptures. Okay, the scriptures is what wound our adversaries. Okay, those that are out there just running their mouth, they're going to get rolled up on by Esau Edom and their military, because they don't have protection. They don't have refuge in Yahweh Shema Shai. So that word watches.
Strong's H 6822. Safa. Safa.
Safa. So that's that word watch it, to look about, to spy, keep watch, observe, watch. Okay, yeah, and they're spying on the people. Okay, because they know exactly who's coming in and who's what going out. Okay, they run the borders, they run the air, they run the water, they run the maritime law, right? They run everything. Esau, Edom, the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. They run the technology, so they are spying and keeping watching on everybody, right? And they want people to just openly give up their information. Okay, and a lot of these so-called illegal immigrants are going to give it up because they want the American dream. They're trusting in a better system. Okay, and they're watching closely. Who are they particularly watching closely? As it said, the righteous. Okay, because we're the ones that are actually bringing out the truth, exposing who they are. The rest of the people are what? In darkness. Okay, so they have their watchmen on the left-hand side that are watching what the true watchmen, and we're watching them too. But the thing is that our true watchman is Yahweh Shema Shai, and he's above all. Okay, he controls both sides. Okay, And who's the wicked? That's Esau, Edom, the international bankers, the ones that are what they have that eagle symbol. Okay, whenever you see the Department of Homeland Security or any of these different organizations, a lot of time you'll see that eagle. Okay, which is symbolic to Esau, Edom. Jeremiah 49:16. Thy terribleness have deceived thee, and thy pride of thy heart that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks. Yeah, so their habitation is high. That's why you have all these different skyscrapers, these concrete jungles. Okay, because that's Esau, Edom's habitation, Mount Seir. Thou holdest the height of the hill, so they're in control of everything. As far as America's in power, even though they're beginning to have shameful spewing and their army is weak, right? But there's still that nation that hasn't been taken down yet. Okay, but it's close. Thou shouldest make thy nest on high as the eagle. So their nest on high as the eagle. So they have these different satellites, okay, that are able to look down on what the people. Okay, their eyes are bowing down on what the earth, right? That's their cameras, right? Their satellites, and they actually have space stations that are up there. Okay, they didn't go to the moon, but they're in the inner space. Okay, make the nest on high as the eagle. So an eagle is a very proud bird. Okay, and it's basically a scavenger where it takes everything. It doesn't leave a crumb. Okay, so they set their nest as the eagle, and I will bring thee down, since the Lord, then said the Lord Yahweh. Okay, so they've done all that, right? So basically since 1969, 1970, 1971, right? That's when Elder Abba Bivens was on the scene, when One West, right, was formed, right? And in that, right, you had what the men of the Lord being woken up to the truth, okay, of what that were Hebrew Israelites. We're not Negro, so-called Negro, so-called Latino, so-called Native Americans. We're actually Hebrew Israelites. So since that time, that's been the downfall of Babylon the Great, America. When they begin, Vietnam, right, these different wars, all these wars, they basically have lost. Okay, they never actually won. That's why they're over there for 20, 30 years over there in Afghanistan, because they never really won. They're just bleeding out the resources. Okay, why? Because when they would make it to that height, that would be ultimately their downfall. Malachi 1:4, they shall build, right? They built up America May 1st, 1776, right? Now they're at their 250 year peak, which is usually the end of a kingdom. Okay, and now they're headed for a great downfall. Okay, it says also Edom shall be a desolation. So Edom is the one that control America, and what's their the national bird, the eagle. Okay, here in America, right, showing you that this is modern day Basra. Okay, and also Edom shall be a desolation. Everyone that goeth by it shall be astonished, shall hiss at all the plagues thereof. Yeah, because America, which is spiritually Basra, which is a capital city of Edom. Edom means red, going into Esau. Edom having leprosy, being translucent, his blood showing through. His cash cow, which is America, is going to be laid desolate. Okay, and people are going to hiss at all the plagues thereof, because this place is going to be up in smoke. It's going to be where the scriptures speak about the lake of fire. Okay, 18. As in the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah in the neighbor cities thereof, said the Lord Yahweh, no man shall abide there, neither shall son of man dwell in it. Okay, so Sodom and Gomorrah, right, was hit with fire and brimstone. Okay, and the word Sodom means to be burning, and Gomorrah means to be submerged. This place is going to be submerged with fire and brimstone, right? Because the earth is given into the hands of the wicked, and they are in power. Okay, and seeing that eagle, that sign of the eagle, goes back to what Mount Seir, right, is their symbol. Okay, so, and that's what you see with Department of Homeland Security. So that's the wicked that are watching the righteous seeking to slay him. Okay, and they're starting with these illegal immigrants to put them in categories, but really it's for all the people. So let's play a little bit more.
Listen, I recognize I'm probably asking you to look into a crystal ball here, but what do you think CBP would be looking for? What would determine what's acceptable and what's not?
So I think they're looking for individuals that may be involved in government propaganda or anti-U.S. sentiment. The concern that I have is who's going to decide what's offensive, what's inappropriate. Is it going to be an algorithm? Is it going to be a human? Going back Facebook 5 years, I mean, you think of what a kid 20 years old is posting versus a kid that's 25 could be very different. I don't know what I posted 5 years ago, let alone 5 weeks ago. So I'm just concerned with the breadth of this, and also asking people for 10 years of their email addresses. That would be a tough one for me as well.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I covered this a few months ago about how the Trump administration was going to require 5 years of social media history in order to obtain a temporary visa and be able to enter the United States of America. I mean, it doesn't sound much more ridiculous than that, but of course we know why they are doing this, and this is just more proof, of course, that social media websites like Facebook, which we all know are creations of the Pentagon and DARPA. We know why they exist, because these are websites where people willingly tell the government, tell people around them, tell their family members what's on their mind. This was the first phase in uploading your consciousness because, of course, anytime a world event happens, people would go on Facebook and they would tell everybody what happened, whether a family member died and they wanted to put out a public statement for their friends. Of course, we see how people behave now with social media. Anytime an event happens, everybody feels the need to post their thoughts or their opinions on it as if there's some type of a celebrity. This is part of the mass conditioning that has occurred with social media. But Facebook itself and all these social media accounts were created by the government. Again, the Pentagon LifeLog project was killed off on February 4th, 2024. And of course, on the same exact day, Facebook was launched. And like I've said a million times, people would not have willingly participated or signed up for websites like Facebook had they known that these were government websites. They thought that this was just the creation from a college kid. It was a fun idea. You can interact with other classmates. Then it turned into from being a college type website to being a national website where anybody could sign up and find their family members and connect with friends. And of course, this was all ploy to get people to share things online so the government could build a profile on you. And now we've gotten to a point where, of course, the U.S. is mandating these checks of people's social media histories and, of course, 10 years worth of email accounts that you have had and created. And if you forget one of your accounts, you will not be admitted into the United States because, of course, we all know using IP addresses and other things, the government can easily find it. They can get through VPNs. They know what you've created, where you've created it, and they'll see the activity that you've used with certain email addresses, like signing up for websites like maybe ones like a callforuprising.com, because that's what this is really all about. So you heard the woman there say, well, who are the people who are going to be doing the checks? Who's going to be sitting there going through all of these people's profiles? Well, of course, we know that they're going to be using an algorithm. They're going to use artificial intelligence to go through to find keywords and things that have been posted or shared within seconds to deny people's visa access into getting in to the United States of America. And I decided that since this is the topic that we're talking about, and I have kind of mentioned it in the past, how social media will be building out your profile, your digital profile on you, I decided to use AI and ask it questions about how this entire process.
Okay. And so I'm going to go into that, to ChatGPT, right, which is basically what they did. But what are they doing? They're causing it, right, because they're mandating, your history, which, like he was saying, those are sites, Facebook, basically, they were created at DARPA, which is DARPA is a information system that basically where they do all sorts of testing that are against what their constitution. Okay, so they'll invest, millions and billions of dollars in the technology, okay, to be able to create, how to spy on people, how to, create these weapons, okay, these weather weapons, HARP, right? So all these different things are what created out of DARPA. Okay, one of those being Facebook. So they had what people coming in, right, just putting everybody's information. So this is your friend, you might have moved across the, to the what, you're on the West Coast, you were on the East Coast, but you still have those same friends went through Facebook. So they're able to put you in a category, right? They're able to know your information. You don't like Trump, you like Biden or whatever. You're not for anything that's going on here in America, but all that information is right there. Okay, through what their data, which is the artificial intelligence. What are they doing? They're geofencing everything in by using Palantir, okay, which is a data mining company, to be able to gather information, okay, to feed it, to geofence people in, to lock people in, to see if they're criminals or not, okay, Revelation 13 and 16. He causeth all, both small, great, rich, and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Okay, the word causeth, right? So they're mandating it. If you say anything, right, against them, or if you said anything in the last 5 years, or they send 10 years of emails, 5 years of social media posts, okay, then you're not going to be able to do certain things, okay? But one of them being buying and selling, okay, or even entering in and out of a city. A man shall desire to go in the city and shall not be able to, right? So the Greek word poeo for the English word causeth, right, to make with things made to produce. So now they're making what Department of Homeland Security, right, do these mandate checks of what your social media. Also the check 10 years checking of what your email. So now they're going into your privacy, okay? And with that information, right, your private information, they can be able to use it against you, to either, if it's in the wrong hands, to be able to blackmail you, okay, of certain things. Maybe you had, something going on that was, not legal or whatever, right? So this is way they can be able to blackmail people, right? Or even if you just believe in something, okay, you believe in something other than what they believe in, like we do. We are what contrary to this world, because we're coming in righteousness and they're coming in wickedness. Okay, so with the names, things made to produce, construct, form, fashion. So they're fashioning a society that if you say anything against them, they can be able to lock you out of the system. To be authors of, cause, right? Render, constitute. So now they're making it legal. Okay, they're putting it in their legislation. Okay, by using what Trump mandated. Okay, and it starts with these illegal immigrants, and then it's going to head to the people. Constant, because whatever Psalm 64 and 5, whenever they do something with the illegal immigrants, know that they're going to do it with the people shortly after. Constitute, be part of a whole. Yeah, so what do they have? The New World Order, Novus Ordo Seclorum, which is on the back of the bill. Okay, which is what in the Latin in the English New World Order. One world government, one world religion, one world military. And then that one world religion is what you bowing down to them, following what their system. Okay, and if you say anything about them, they'll just execute you. Okay, the 7 Noah laws, right? Legal execution. You hear Trump all the time speaking about what capital punishment. Okay, bringing back those guillotines. Okay, so they can, and they're going to do it openly, so to push fear upon the people. Give legal or constitutional form, institution established by law. So they're establishing these things by law, which are what they're amending their constitution, right, and going into draconian policies. Okay, they're beginning to speak like a dragon. So constitute, to make one to do something. Okay, so if you're not able to go into a city because of something that you said, now it's going to many people are going to pierce themselves through with many sorrows. Okay, because they're going to say, oh, I didn't mean that. And I'm not going to say that anymore, right? So they're forcing Larry Fink, right, the CEO of BlackRock, he said they're forcing behaviors, okay? And he's been talking to the mayors and the governors, right, and the presidents before they even get into office, that you need to force these behaviors on the people, okay? To make one do something, okay? To be authors of a thing, to cause, to bring about, to cause about what? The confusion, and bring about what the New World Order, their philosophies, which is their image, their 2030 agenda, through what their justification, through their scientists and through their doctors, right? And they're carrying it out now. They're carrying it out and executing, and they don't care what people say about them, okay? Because they're beginning to be carnal. They'll just take you out. So that word causeth, right? So poeo, okay? That's them forming their constitution to to bring about what ultimately the chip. Okay, and going back to Revelation 12 and 10, that word accuse, right? Categoras, right? You go to the root word agora, right? To buy and sell. So this is what them causing all, both small, great, rich, and poor, free and bond, to receive what? A mark in their right hand or in their foreheads. Okay, and what the right hand is what the dexos, right? The forehead is what the metapon, okay, which is facial recognition. They're using to scan the people. That's why they told the people to take a selfie. Okay, why? Because now you have their picture of who they are, right? And then now you can identify to everything else. And you have the right hand, right? Because this is where they're going to be implementing that chip inside the people's hand or inside the forehead. Because the mark is something is the RFID chip, okay? In the Greek charagma, okay, which is a badge of servitude to those that take it. Okay, then what the root word of that is what Karax, which is a syringe they would use to be able to put it inside the people's hand or forehead, so you can be able to go into a city, okay, with that if you have that chip, okay. Then the root word of that is grapho, which is your actual information, which they're doing right now. They're gathering everybody's grapho, which is their data, their information, to be able to bring forth a biometric identity, which is uniquely identified to each person. Okay, through their name, their birth certificate, their social credit score, their ESG, their carbon emissions, all these things on one digital ID, and then ultimately that's the gradualism to the chip. Okay, so the right hand, dexos, right? The right hand, right? You go to the root word, declamai. Okay, declamai, to take with hand. So that's something physical that that they want the people to take with their hand. But first, they're coming with these different devices to pass. Okay, ultimately bringing it in. Gradualism in an assiduous way. Okay, has harmful effects. To take up, to receive. So what are people doing right now? They're taking up what the philosophies of what the serpent, okay, of his image, his scientists, right, his doctors, right now, right, with that far as with the people's bodies. So your temple is your body, okay. So if you're already following the ways of this world, right, you've already been infiltrated, what, mentally and spiritually, okay. And then what if mentally and spiritually you're in this world, right, then physically it's going to be nothing when they offer up the chip. Meanwhile, we're not in tune with this world, far as we know what's going on, and we understand that we have to be in this society, far as to bear our cross, okay? But we understand that this devil is bringing wicked devices to pass, okay? So take up, to receive, grant access. Yeah, to grant access to what? To a city. So they're starting with those illegal immigrants, and we're going to bring this in, and what it is just a form of a dictatorship, a new world order. Okay, taking away people's privacy and offering them security. Okay, receive hospitality. Yeah, now you can come into our home, right? That's what they're saying. Hey, if you pass the social media test of 5 years, right, of comments, right, if you pass the 10-year period of emails, okay, then we'll give you hospitality. We'll furnish you with the things that you need, right? And that's basically what they're saying through what this mandating of the social media checks, right? And receive one into family, yeah, into their family of what? Their satanic, their NWO, make you an NWO citizen, okay? To bring about, to educate. Yeah, they're educating you. Don't say this certain shit. Don't have your own opinions, okay? Receive favorably. Yeah, people are going to receive it favorably because of all the troubles that's going on. That's why these illegal immigrants are even coming over to America, because they have coups that are being formed in these different countries, okay, by Esau Edom, okay, to take the lands by violence. Micah 2:1, right? Micah 2:1, they devise iniquity upon their bed. When the morning is light, they practice it because it's in the power of their hand. They've been given power on the left-hand side to take peace from the earth. So all throughout the four corners of the earth, you have Esau Edom that's implementing these certain systems, okay? Give ear to embrace, yeah, ear to embrace what? Their philosophies, okay, to announce what you believe in and follow their ways. Make one's own approved, yeah, not to reject, okay? Because what? They're being mandated now. They're through their draconian policies. They're going against their constitution, and they're mandating it. And so I looked this up myself on ChatGPT. Mandate checks of social media. A social media can mean a few different things depending on the context, right? So government mandated social media checks. This refers to laws or policies requiring. So laws or policies. He calls it all, both small, great, rich, and poor. So that's what their constitution, right? You can also go to Isaiah 10:1, where it speaks about their policies. Because when these illegal immigrants come over here, they're not coming with any money. A lot of them, right? They're coming broke. Okay, they're coming for that American dream. Okay, so just like the people here, everyone here in Babylon the Great is poor too. So a lot of people are going to bow down to the system, especially when they offer like a universal basic income, or they offer you, you can live over here for free. But then that's going to come with what ultimately that dangling of the carrot, right, is going to come with the hook in that carrot. Okay, those that fall for that deception. So Isaiah 10:1, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees and write grievances which they have prescribed. Yeah, they have prescribed this legislation. Now they're engraving it in their executive orders, right, which are draconian policies. That's why it says woe, which means destruction, doom, or tear. A decree is a law. Okay. Oh, Slocky, I wanted to get translation comparison, right? So Isaiah 10:1 in the NET. Those who enact unjust, who are they unjust to? The poor. Policies are good as dead. Those who are always instituting unfair regulations. Woe unto those enacting crooked statutes, writing oppressive laws. And who are they oppressive to? The ones at the bottom. Okay. 2, to turn aside the needy from judgment and to take away the right from the poor of my people. The widows may be their prey and they may rob the fathers. Yeah, because they want to take away our so-called rights of what free speech. Okay, by what preaching this word, right? They want to take us off the streets. By what label us what extremists or radicalists, because we are against this society because it is built upon wickedness. Okay. And we're supposed to be prophesying Ezekiel. That's actually a commandment, Ezekiel 35, to prophesy against Mount Seir. Okay, not to be buddy with what Esau Edom, not to have a 501c3 contract like IUIC, ISUPK has, and these other groups have. Okay, that's why their doctrine is bugged out, because they're of the world. Love not the world and the things in it. Okay, so again, government mandated social media checks. This refers to laws or policies. Yeah, these are unrighteous laws or policies, right? Requiring certain people or agencies to review someone's social media history. Examples: background checks, law enforcement, security roles that include reviewing public social media activity. Yeah, and what are they trying to label you? Extremist, radicalist, or dissident, right? Visa immigration screening, where applicants must list their social media handles. Okay, so all their information, right? So something that was once private is now what open to the public, and then now they can be able to put it on the cloud, all your information. Okay. So this could label you, right? And it's not just, okay, you can't be in this city. Now you're not going to be able to be in that city. Because again, remember that it's a new world order. All the data is being centralized. So if you're not accepted here, you're not going to be accepted everywhere. Weapons of firearm permit screening in some jurisdictions that require social media review, safety assessments. These policies are often debated because they raise privacy, right? Going against people's constitution. So-called, we know it's all bullshit, but the point is going against that stuff, right? Their so-called legislation, surveillance, right? They're sitting in the lurking places, and free speech concerns. This is going to lead to what? A man shall be offended of the word, because you're not going to be able to say what you want, right? Isaiah 29:21, Amos, what is that? Amos 8:11, right? There's a famine of the word, because what did it say? Free speech concerns, okay? So employer and organizations mandated checks. Some companies require reviewing an applicant's public posts for professionalism. So if you're saying something about the government, they can take you out of your job, take away your livelihood. Okay, and we understand that that's coming down the pipeline. Okay, it's a matter of time. And Brakateh Habashama Shai, Lord willing, I'm still in this truth, right? I want it to happen. Because the day when I don't have to go to work anymore, and that means that what the hour of temptation is right around the corner. Okay? And I trust in Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay? You're supposed to be obsessed with what prophecy, the spirit of prophecy, right? Being steadfast, immovable. We want the chip to be mandated, because we know once that chip is mandated, okay, most likely the great persecution is going to come first. The persecution, the accusation, right? And then the mandating of the chip. Okay, we want these days to come, because that's through chaos is what going to bring peace, is going to bring Yahweh Shai, okay, through prophecy. So continuous monitoring of employees' online activity, sensitive roles. Okay, again, this controversial depending on how intrusive the checks are. Okay, parental or school mandated checks. Schools or parents may require monitoring student social media for bullying, threats, and harmful behavior. They're not worried about that. Okay. Then what they're worried about is, are you saying something about them? They don't care about the bullying. They push bullying. Okay. That's why they push all these videos that have all these movies that have guns. Everywhere you got a motherfucker with a gun. Okay. So, you got a good guy and a bad guy. Okay. Apps that track student posts related to safety or self-harm, and they don't care about that because they actually push. You have MK Ultra programs. Okay, where people have already exposed that they have MK Ultra, where they have these people that go in, their spirits created for vengeance. Okay, that are set up to do certain things. So if you want, I can go deeper, legal pros and cons, biblical, spiritual perspective, whether these checks are constitutional, how they relate to surveillance systems, police state. Yeah, so I asked how is it related to a police state? Okay, so a police state of surveillance is a system where government or powerful institutions use extensive monitoring technologies to track people's movements. That's what they're doing. Okay, they're tracking people's movement, what you say and what you do, right? Let me actually get a scripture with that. Isaiah 29:21, that make a man offender for a word. So the things that you say, you're going to be what labeled a criminal. And lay a snare, which is a trap, a fine, right, and put him to prison, right, loss of job, right, these certain things, and lay a snare for him that reprove in the gate, because that's what we're doing. Okay, we're supposed to be reproving at the gate. We're letting the people know, right, what's actually going on, and in that we're going to be hated in this society. And turn aside a just for a thing of not. NOT, those who convict the innocent by their false testimony will disappear, and similar fate awaits those who use trickery to pervert justice and to tell lies to destroy the innocent. Yeah, because they're going to be coming with straight up slander. That's why it speaks about Job 5 and right here, Job 5:21. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue. Yeah, because what? These are forgers of lies, physicians of no value. Job 13:4. Thou shalt be hid from the scourge of the tongue, neither shalt be afraid of destruction when it cometh. So we're not afraid when destruction comes. In fact, we welcome it. Because we're tired of this place, tired of waking up in this hellhole. We want to be with Yahweh Shema Shai. And the only way to do that is what? By bearing our cross. Okay? What? Suffering, long suffering, right? Patiently waiting and trusting in the Lord, right? And fearing Yahweh Shema Shai. Okay? Job 5:21 in the NLT, you will be safe from slander. That's what they're going to be coming with, slander, because of what we're saying, right? They can be able to take away the bankers, okay? Take any type of money that you have in your bank account, that could be gone, right? Any type of you live in a certain area, they can take that away from you, your car, right? Whatever, okay? Because the earth is given to them as a wicked, okay? But they can't take away the spiritual things. They can take away cardinal things only if the Lord allows, but the spiritual things they can't take away. Okay, and that's why when you read scriptures like Romans 8:35, nothing shall separate us nakedness, which means to not have anything, right? Cardinal, perils, dangerous times, right? Persecution, right? Nothing's going to be able to separate us if we're of the elect. That's why it speaks about also who shall give charge to my elect in that same chapter, Romans 8:33, which is fire. For hope in these times that we're in, okay? Because that's all we have is hope and trust in Yahweh Shema Shai, okay? So Job 5:21 in the NLT, you will be safe from slander and have no fear when destruction comes. Yeah, have no fear when destruction comes, okay? Because we understand what's going on. The Lord has given us the eyesight to see. You will laugh at destruction. Yeah, so what type of spirit do you have to laugh at destruction? Laugh at cannibalism, laugh at people being exploded, right? Laughing at what all sorts of time of trouble like never before. You will laugh at destruction and famine. Wild animals will not terrify you, because these animals are going to be looking for food also. Okay, and when you go down in this chapter, it speaks about we will be at peace with those animals, and we will be at peace with the stones, which is what Esau Edom in his military. Job 5, right? It also speaks about the sixth trouble. Okay, when they're going to be mandating it, right? Let me get that. This is right here, Job 5:19. He shall deliver thee in six troubles, in 7 there shall no evil touch thee. So that sixth trouble, when that sixth trumpet is blown, okay, which is what going to be the mandating of the chip, okay, and what in the 7 thou shall no evil touch thee. So 7 goes into what? A completion, okay. Completion of what? Bearing our cross, right? And the Lord's going to lift up that standard for the elect. So let's go back to this, right? So it says there's a system where government are powerful institutions, right? And who is the government? Government means mind control. Who runs the government? Esau Edom, the so-called white men, the international bankers. Okay, they are monitoring technologies to track people's movements. Okay, they're tracking your every movement, whether you know it or not, with your cell phone, okay, with your debit card, with your credit card, with your car. All these things are ways to track the people. Okay, other people's cameras, right? Flock safety. With these, they can read your license plate, right? So they're tracking the people's movements, communications, right? If you have Instagram, right? If you have Facebook, right? YouTube, right? They're tracking your community. You're leaving comments, okay? Even if you're a mocker, okay? Even if you're a scoffer and you're leaving, even if you're a scoffer, right? You scoff on someone's page. Guess what? You're marked because now you know that you're a Hebrew Israelite, and that makes you what? That makes you an enemy of the state also. Okay, it just means that you're not protected by the Lord, but you know you're a Hebrew Israelite. You're a mocker and scoffer, right? So now they got that information too, and they don't want no one to know about the children of Israel. Okay, so even those mockers and scoffers, they are set up to be destroyed because they're going to get rolled down by Esau Edom because of their communication. Okay, on certain comment boards, you'll have the mocker and scoffer saying little stupid ass shit, right? But you on someone's page that's is speaking about the truth. Okay, so you know the truth. It's just that you're a mocker and scoffer, right? Which means that what? You're headed for judgment anyway. And behavior, it often grows slowly, piece by piece. Yeah, gradualism. That's what they're doing, gradualism. Okay, or another word for gradualism is what? Insidiously. Okay, insidiously, which means that it has harmful effects. They come in a subtle way. Okay, so piece by piece through security measures until it becomes normal. Yeah, because also another thing called social, the conditioning, right? Let me look that up over here. They're conditioning a society.
Social conditioning is a lifelong process. It's how people learn their society's norms, values, and behaviors through family, school, media, and peers. This shapes our thinking, habits, and choices, leading to a sense of belonging, but it can also create biases or limit opportunities.
Yeah, because you only know one part of it. Okay, and what they push through their media, which is their sorcery, Isaiah 47:12, Revelation 18:23, their sorceries, right, which is their media, they push what? One-sided things. That America is great, trust in them. Meanwhile, America's going around doing all sorts of crimes against humanity. Okay? And they push what? A bias, because it goes into what they want, which is a new world order, right? When I remember when the juice was out in 2020, the juice was loose, right? And I remember there was a comment. Basically, they said the only boogeyman is when you go on the internet, okay, or you go on you watch TV. The only boogeyman is when you watch the TV, okay. Besides that, you don't have that, right? Because that was all what? That was all a psyop for the people, okay. And a lot of people fell for it, and then they're not here because they were pushing with the values and the beliefs, okay. Trusting in them. Okay, never trust thine enemy, for like iron is rusted, so is his wickedness. They were pushing what that through their media. Okay, so that's what social conditioning, right? In society. Okay, and they're insidiously. I'll bring out that word, which is it's similar word to gradualism. Okay, so insidiously. Okay, in a gradual, subtle way, but with harmful effects. And remember that what that serpent in the garden is Esau Edom today. The serpent is back again to deceive the people. So he's coming in a subtle way. Okay, very deceptive. Okay, because they'll paint like they're trying to help somebody when they're not. They're deceiving. Okay, they are the deceiver. Okay, track people's movements, communications, behavior. Right, go slowly, piece by piece. So gradualism. What defines a police state surveillance system? Pervasive monitoring. A police state uses tools like what? Mass CCT and networks. That's what they use. Big Brother. Okay, they're watching your every single movement. License plate readers. That's what I've been speaking about. Flock Safety. Okay, that's a company that they have that's against their. It's illegal. Okay, it's against their constitution, but they're draconianly gathering that information and feeding it to the government. Okay, which is feeding it to Palantir, which is a data mining, and then it feeds it into geofence people in to lock people down. Phone media data collection. Yeah, so through your phone. Okay, just like I said, Bibi and Yahoo, he said that. Let me get that. Yeah, so this one right here. Anyone who holds a cell phone owns a piece of Israel. This is what Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu said. So if you own a cell phone, guess what? They have your information. Okay? Addressing delegation in the United States, right? PM, Israel's name could use, okay. Right? And they're using that as what? They're using the cell phone as a weapon. Okay, so that's the point. Anyone who owns a cell phone owns a piece of Israel. Okay, they have your information. Right? So even if you turn off what your location, they can still track and trace you. Phone media data, which is what the grapho. Facial recognition, which is what the word forehead. Metapon in the Greek in Revelation 13 and 16. Social media scanning. Okay, they're putting everybody in the category, agara, or slakia, categories, which goes into the root word agara. Okay, G58, predictive policing algorithms, data fusion centers, right? Key features when data from police, tech companies, schools, and hospitals. So all these are being linked into one, to what a new world order. Okay, data point system watches everyone guilty of some day. Yeah, so you might do something, right? Going into what the Orwellian 1984 George Orwell movie, 1984, which is what the police state. Okay. Right. So in that in that police state, you had what did you have? You had the thought police. If they thought about something, okay, if you thought about something, you could be locked up. So innocent until proven guilty. Okay, and really, it's guilty till proven innocent, right? In this society. Okay, so that's a police state, shrinking privacy and freedom, censoring themselves, avoiding certain speech. That's what they're doing. Okay, when you had Charles Kirk, right, he got knocked off or got deleted. Guess what? They were telling people to not celebrate that. That's a violation of what free speech. When you had RFK Jr. with the health minister, right? What did he say? He said that you can't eat certain foods, right? Then you have Gates that is saying you will. Gates is saying that you have to eat certain foods, right? You'll eat bugs, right? These certain things. So this is the form of dictatorship, because they're not going to be eating bugs and doing all sorts of things, but they're going to have what the people at the bottom feeling, watch, even doing normal things. Yeah, so you're not going to be able to do so-called normal things, and they're right on point on this, right? Systems that watch in secret, Psalms 10, 8 and 9, which goes into what the wicked lie in wait, observing the unexpected. Yeah, they're sitting in the lurking places, right? I'm going to go into those scriptures. Hidden snare, Psalm 64 and 2. Yeah, the secret plots, the workers of iniquity. We went into Isaiah 10 and 1 and 2 because what they're seeking to oppress the poor, which are the so-called Negros, so-called Latinos, so-called Native Americans, and bring in what their world system of control, which is what their New World Order, okay, which is what the V system, which is what NATO and EU, and what America's sparing the charge, okay, America being the whore, right? They're bringing forth their image, which is their philosophies, man on man, woman on woman, bestiality, and ultimately that physical chip. Symbolic language describing a global power structure that monitors and restricts. These passages resonate with the feeling of being constantly watched or trapped. Yeah, they're constantly watching you. You were in a police stage, the beginning stages of it. Courts, privacy laws, civil liberties. Yep. So Isaiah, we can get that. So the liberal shall no more be called liberal, right? These so-called democracies. This is Isaiah 32 and 5. Isaiah 32 and 5. It says, for the vile person shall no more be called liberal, nor the churl shall be vileful. So that vile person is Esau Edom. He is the ungodly, and he is a churl, a niggard, and a knave. Okay? And these liberal, far as, basically you can do what you want, man on man, woman on woman, their democracy, right? That's what being liberal. Okay, now they're beginning to show that they don't want none of that stuff. And so that's causing division, that's causing the uproars of the people. Okay, and they're not respecting their government anymore. For the vile person will speak violently in his heart. So in his mind, he will work iniquity. Yes, sin upon sin, to practice hypocrisy, so ungodliness, and to utter error against the Lord Yahweh. Yeah, because they are against the Lord Yahweh. To make empty the soul of the hungry, and will cause the drink of the thirsty to fail. So this is what mentally, or this is spiritually and what physically, because they're cutting off the water, they're cutting off the food, what physically, and what spiritually, right? Mentally and spiritually, they're trying to cut off the word, right? With the famine of the word, by what their different devices, by if you say anything against the president, or if you say anything against the government, they can lock you up, Okay. The instruments also, so these are their instruments, they're smooth tricks, right? The instruments also of the churl are evil. Okay. He deviseth wicked devices to destroy the poor with lying words. Yeah, because they're not openly telling you why they're doing these certain things. They're not telling you the whole story. They're only giving you one part. Even when the needy speaketh right. So even when we're speaking what righteous things, they're still what seeking to slay the wicked, or seeking the wicked are seeking to slay the righteous. Psalms 37 and 32. Psalms 10 and 7. I read in the NLT. Their mouths are full of cursing, and their cursing is their oath that they made with Satan. Okay, which is what? To lock everybody down and bring forth satanic worship. Lies and threats. Yeah, so they'll threaten you. We'll take away your job. We'll take away this, right? We'll take this away. They did that in 2020 with the Jews. Trouble and evil are on the tips of their tongues. They lurk in ambush in the villages, right? Yeah, so on their trouble and evil on the tips of their tongues. That's their executive orders that are now becoming draconian policies. They lurk in ambush in the villages, waiting to murder the innocent people. They're always searching for helpless victims. Yeah, so how do they lurk? With their cameras to ambush what? The people in the different cities. 8. He sitteth in the lurking places of the villages, and secret places do he murder the innocent. His eyes are privily set against the poor. So what are those secret places? These different information centers. Okay, that these big brother centers where they're watching everybody's movement. Okay, with the CCTV. Okay, to what? To murder the innocent. His eyes, what his cameras are privily set against the poor. The so-called Negro, so-called Latino, so-called Native American. So they're sitting in the lurking places, right, of the villages in these different cities, right? Right, and they're not telling you that they're there, okay, but they're watching everybody's movement, and then they can track it into your phone and debit card, all these certain things. And the secret places do he murder the innocent. His eyes, his cameras are privily set against the poor. He lieth to wait secretly as a lion in his den. A lion is a very ferocious animal. What's their den? These different big brother centers, right? These data centers, these CCTV centers. He lieth in wait to catch the poor. He do catch the poor when he draw them into his net. And what's his net? His system. Okay, his system. You did this, you did that. You have to denounce that and take this. Okay, that's their new system, their new world order. Okay, that's why King David said this, right? Psalm 64 and 1. Hear my voice, O power, and my prayer, and preserve my life from the fear of an enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, for the insurrection of workers of iniquity. Yeah, they're plotting evil against us, and now they're beginning to actually bring it out there. Who whet their tongue like sword, and they bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. So with their legislation, their executive orders, okay, their tongue is with their sword. Okay, bend their bows, or which are with their basically their words. Okay, to shoot at the righteous. Okay, even bitter words. They may shoot in secret at the perfect. Who are the perfect? The ones that have this truth, covered by Yahweh Shema Shai. So they'll shoot at us with their legislation by what taking away certain people's rights, and this is going to lead to what? Those false prophets being exposed as false prophets, because they're gonna change their doctrine, okay, or they're gonna bow down to the system, right? While the elect, they're not gonna bow down. Suddenly, and not in a cardinal sense, where we're out there, protest like IUIC protested or Sakari being cardinal with weapons. No, we're gonna bear our cross, okay. As far as if it's to be beheaded, okay, it's to be beheaded, to be martyrs, right? Because John the Revelator saw men being beheaded for the truth, but they had a crown upon their head. Or Revelation 2 and 10, where some of us shall be put into prison, right? We have to bear a cross. Going into that cross is what we have to go, the adversity that we have to go through to be able to hold on to that crown, which is salvation is truth. And fear not. That's why we're not in fear of what man can do, because we understand that Yahweh Shema Shai controls both sides. They encourage themselves in the evil matter. They commune of laying snares, privily who shall see them. And we see what they're doing through Yahweh Shema Shai. We're not ignorant of Satan's devices. Okay? Their snares are their trap. They privily say, who shall see them? Yeah, so they encourage themselves in the evil matters because they're all about wickedness. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. Both their inward thought of every one of the heart is deep. Yeah, because they believe they devised the perfect plan, which is their new world order, which is ultimately going to be carried headlong. Because right now it's being exposed. Okay, and so as the days go on, they're going to be more and more exposed for what their wickedness that they're doing, and as what they are being exposed and they're declining, right? The men of the Lord are standing upon that rock, which is that solid foundation. because we understand what the days are coming. Psalm 60, when these things are actually mandated, physically mandated, the chip being mandated. Psalm 62:5, my soul, wait thou upon thy power, for my expectation is from him. He only is my rock, and my salvation is my defense, I shall not be moved. And my power is my salvation, my glory, the rock of my strength, and my refuge is of the Most High. Trust in him at all times. You people, pour out your heart before him. The Most High is our refuge for us, Salah. So we're supposed to be pouring out our prayers to Yahweh Shema Shai and doing these videos, because these are actually tears to Yahweh Shema Shai, so we can have meat for repentance. Okay? Revelation 2:10, fear none of these things which thou shalt suffer. So all the carnal things that are being taken away. Behold, the devil, right, which is Esau Edom, devil means deceiver, shall cast some of you into prison, because of our ways being contrary to this world, right? Because we're coming in righteousness, they're coming in wickedness, shall cast some of you into prison, these FEMA camps, re-educational centers. You shall be tried, going into the trial and the testimony of our faith. We have to go through the adversity, that fire. Okay, and you shall have tribulation 10 days. 10 goes into what? Perfection. Okay, it could be 10, it could be more, but you bared your cross. Okay, you didn't bow down. Be thou faithful unto death. Yeah, faithful, that we got the true names of Yahweh, as only begotten Son Yahweh Shai, and the sound doctrine, that we're of the elect. Be thou faithful unto death, because some of us are going to be martyrs, be beheaded, and I will give thee a crown of life. And the crown of life goes into what? Salvation. Okay, to be able to what? Be saved. So right now the Lord has given us, understanding of power, right, of what's going on. But we have to hold on to that crown. Okay, we have to bear our cross, which crown goes into Stephanos.
Strong's G 4735. Stephanos.
Okay, Stephanos, the crown make royal, exalted rank. So who's gonna exalt us? Our Lord Yahweh Shai. Yahweh Shema Shai is gonna exalt us. Okay, that's why when you have men that are exalting themselves, they're gonna be a base. Okay, because the Lord's looking for meek and lowly. Metaphor, the eternal blessedness which are given as a prize to genuine servants of the Most High. Yeah, genuine servants of the Most High, which his name is Yahweh, and then the Messiah, his name is Yahweh Shai. The crown wreath, which is the reward of the righteous. Yeah, not for everybody, the reward of the righteous. And we're praying that we're of that number. So with that, call Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahweh Shai Ba'Hashem Makakodah Shalom to the elect Kwame Shalom. Let's go.